Okay. So this is by Sangyoon Han. I might be butchering his pronunciation of his name. He received his PhD from Boeong University of Science and Technology in Korea. He's now with Samsung Electronics, and he can, or his video will be played online, and he'll be there to answer questions after. Cool.
Thank you for coming to see my video. My name is Sangyoon Han. In this video, I will present a method for generating haptic motion effects for general scenes to improve 4D experiences. 4D content is an extremely immersive form of entertainment, providing multisensory effects such as motion, vibration, and wind effects, with audiovisual content. 4D applications are getting more popular and common. Motion effects improve immersiveness by providing physical movements to users' body corresponding to the movements in a scene. In industry, the creation of motion effects is done by manual process, which is very time-consuming. To reduce this effort, in academia, several studies proposed automatic algorithms to generate motion effects by analyzing audiovisual content, focusing on 3 types of motion effects: camera-based, object-based, and sound-based. Camera-based motion effects represent the camera movement of first-person view. Object-based motion effects respond to the movement of key objects in a scene. Sound-based motion effects represent sound events such as explosions or vibrations. However, each algorithm assumes that each scene segment is given with a specific motion effect type. In reality, its annotation should be accompanied, and for scenes with multiple sources, a process of extracting and merging information from each source should be involved. Motivated by this, we propose an integrated framework for generating multiple types of motion effects. In order to generate motion effects that simultaneously express multiple components, we referred to the concept of motion proxy in previous study. Here, motion proxy comprehensively expresses the movements of numerous parts of multiple objects with a single movement. We extended this concept and defined motion proxy as expressing numerous movements of scene components in a single movement, and created a motion effect generation framework based on this. Our framework consists of 3 steps. The first step extracts visual movements from audiovisual content. The second step computes a motion proxy by combining the multiple movements. The third step converts the motion proxy into motion effects through a motion cueing algorithm. Before going into detail, I'll show you a short demonstration. The first step is to extract visual motion. For this, we use 2 computer vision techniques: scene flow and saliency estimation. Then we compute the motion proxy by combining the velocity for all pixels with the saliency as a weight. At this time, we obtain the pixel velocities considering the visual perception mode. The subject relative mode obtains the motion proxy from the velocity in the subject's local coordinate system, i.e. the scene flow value itself. The object relative mode is based on the relative velocity to the background, which is computed by subtracting the scene flow of the non-saliency area. Then, we applied post-processing to the motion proxy. First, the intensity of the motion effect was adjusted to emphasize the object size, and dynamics were attenuated or amplified depending on the genre. For example, in the case of games, fast movements were amplified and slow movements were attenuated to emphasize dynamics. On the other hand, in the case of sports and dance, small movements were amplified and fast movements were attenuated to express detailed movements well. The motion proxy obtained by the previous steps is converted into motion effects through a motion cueing algorithm. We designed 2 motion cueing algorithms based on MPC. MPC with high-pass filters expresses the high-frequency velocity of the motion proxy through the movement of the chair. The second algorithm, which also combines tilt coordination, expresses even the sustained movement of the object by tilting the chair. This video visualizes the motion effects as a single point of movement. There were 2 visual modes and 2 motion cueing algorithms, and the motion commands created by the 4 combinations are shown. You can see that the motion is created to respond to various visual effects and particle movements, as well as the movement of the object. However, existing studies cannot express such movements. In this video, the differences between the 4 methods are more noticeable. OH and OT are expressed by compensating the movement of the camera, and tilt coordination is applied to ST and OT. So you can observe that they are tilted to one side according to the low frequency movement. Finally, we conducted a user study for general content to compare the motion effects generated by our algorithms and the one by conventional method. We selected 3 genres of content, which has a potential to improve the user experience when motion effects are presented together. We conducted 3 user experiments, recruiting 20 participants for each genre. The 3 genres were movies or cinematic cutscenes, sports and dance, and games. For each genre, we created 5 motion effects for 3 videos. The 5 motion effects were generated by 4 options of our algorithms and 1 by Lee's algorithm. For this method, we carefully obtained object position by annotating one main object and tracking it. When object tracking failed or the bounding box of the object was not captured accurately, we manually corrected it. The results were as follows. In the first and third experiments, the 4 conditions of our algorithms were evaluated better than Lee's. This is because our algorithm generated motion effects that reacted to the movement of particles, as well as the movement of objects, which allowed for richer effects. In addition, we could find that our algorithm even complemented the limitations of methods based on object tracking. For example, in the case of Lee's method, in game videos, the game characters sometimes kept going out of the video frame, so tracking did not work properly, and sometimes a rough motion effect was created due to the jitters of the bounding box. However, in the second experiment, there was not much difference between our algorithm and Lee's method. This is because the videos in the second experiment mainly focused on one object. In actual, when there is only one object, the profiles of the motion effects created by our algorithm and Lee's method are almost similar. In conclusion, in this study, we extended the concept of motion proxy to scene elements. Our algorithm is the first to be able to fully automatically generate motion effects that comprehensively represent various objects, particles, and even camera movements. The user study have also shown that it can improve multimedia experiences than the conventional method. We expect that our research can help the production of 4D effects. This work is done with my collaborator Jaehyeok and my advisor Seungmoon Choi. This is the end of my talk. Thank you for watching it. Hello.
Any questions? All right.
Hi, I'm Kibom Kim from Hanyang University in South Korea. I think it's a very interesting study. I just wondering which tools did you use for user experiment evaluation? So what survey tools did you use?
Say what? I guess the author has to be unmuted. Can you unmute the author? I guess the author is not there to answer questions. Oh, he says he can't unmute it. Can he not be unmuted? Oh, he still has time. Yeah, you could. Yeah, you'll have to join audio again, I guess. Well, if you don't get an opportunity to get your questions answered, I'm sure he can answer your questions offline.
Yeah, also there's a Discord channel, so if you have questions later, feel free to.
And he says he'll leave a message to that question, I believe. I mean, he still has time, though. This is going to happen with the other presenters as well.
I don't think so, because I can't unmute anybody.
Why is that?
It's asking me to ask them to unmute.
Oh,
That's what I'm trying to do.
and he can't unmute it either.
Apparently he's having issues with unmuting. All I can do is ask him to unmute. I can't actually force them to unmute.
And when you did, what did he say?
I just asked, I just press a button.
Okay.
Nothing happens.
Can you type to him saying, try to unmute?
And he said he wants to unmute.
Oh, okay. Guess there are some technical difficulties, so you'll have to field your questions. He'll have to field. Oh. I guess his response was that they did not use any tool. They just made a questionnaire or some factors on the user experience. But if you have any more questions for Sangyoon, you can direct them to him via Discord or emails. I'm sure he'll be happy to field them. I guess we can get Sam up over, and we'll give Sangyoon another round of applause.
Zoom. Flying cars, they say.
So this next talk is titled SmoothRide, a versatile solution to combat cybersickness in elevation-altering environments by Sam Ong and John Quarles. Let Sam take it away.
This is 12 minutes, correct?
Yeah.
All right, start timer. Oh, now I'm having technical difficulties. Is there a way I can, does anyone know how I can expand it? This didn't happen the last time. Oh, it's only on my end. Okay, never mind. All right, sorry, I'll start now. All right, hello everyone. My name is Samuel Lang. I'm from the University of Texas at San Antonio, and this is SmoothRide, a versatile solution to combat cybersickness in elevation-altering environments by Samuel Lang, that's me, and Dr. John Quarles. So in this paper, we explore various software-based techniques for mitigating cybersickness in environments with irregular, kind of bumpy terrain. We present a new strategy for handling this called SmoothRide, which effectively works by dampening the user's perception of changes in elevation. And we evaluate the effectiveness of this approach against two others from the literature in a user study with 61 participants. So a little bit of background. I imagine everyone in this room is familiar with the term cybersickness at this point. This refers to the negative symptoms, unpleasant symptoms we can feel in AR and VR. In our previous work, we found that by introducing changes in elevation to the terrain, we could expect to see worse cybersickness outcomes for our participants, indicating that this is a risk factor of sorts. We call uneven terrain like this that changes the user's level of elevation-altering terrain, or EAT, E-A-T. Now, in all honesty, this acronym is a little bit of a stretch. The original idea was this was meant to be evocative of a particular piece of lingo from the skater community. When you go careening off a bump in the road or something and fall flat at your face, you eat it, as they say, but whatever. So objectives for this project were to, one, determine if existing cybersickness reduction solutions were effective in environments with EAT, and two, to develop, I don't know if you can see that, develop a new approach tailored specifically to these environments. And ideally an approach that isn't too invasive, too obtrusive. A lot of cybersickness reduction can feel kind of like a suit of armor. It protects you, it keeps these unpleasant feelings at bay, but it's not necessarily something you want to wear out casually. It's kind of annoying in its own right a lot of the time. Before we dive into the various approaches, let's look at the environment. So in this study, participants would be tasked with navigating this forest loop for uninterrupted periods of 5 minutes. This loop took you through kind of a virtual forest with a lot of uneven terrain generated from Perlin noise. All movement was accomplished with a steering metaphor. This is where if you have a gamepad or a joystick, you hold the stick down in the direction that you want to move, and your avatar moves continuously in that direction. So condition 1 for the study was a control condition. Participants moved through the environment without the assistance of any cybersickness remedy. Condition 2, we used static field of view reduction. This limited the user's maximum horizontal field of view to 45 degrees. We borrowed a particular configuration from this 2018 paper from Bala et al. This paper came with very specific guidelines for how they set up their static FOV reduction. It was also used to effectively reduce cybersickness in a 3D video of a roller coaster. A roller coaster also sends users moving kind of up and down, so we thought that was a bit comparable to what we were doing here. Condition 3 is called flat surface. This approach borrows from a 2014 paper from Dorado and Figueroa. In this paper, the authors were capable of reducing cybersickness by overlaying an invisible ramp on top of staircases. This essentially prevents the user from having to individually collide, bump into every single one of those stairs on the case as you go up, dunga, dunga, dunga. It prevents that from happening. Here, we take that invisible ramp and we basically insert it into the terrain. So the colors might be a little washed out here, but we insert that into the terrain and then disable the collision properties of the terrain itself. This means if you're traveling over bumps, over hills and valleys, the user maintains kind of a constant level of global elevation throughout the environment as they go. And then finally, the 4th condition is our proposed solution, SmoothRide. SmoothRide is essentially a smooth follow camera that works in the first person, limited to the y-axis. So when a user changes their level of elevation by moving across terrain from position 1 to position 2 here, initially we offset their camera to this position called P, the previous position, to make it look as though they haven't actually ascended or descended at all. Their point of view remains the same as it did before. We then use exponential smoothing to gradually bring their perspective down to a resting position relative to their virtual avatar. That's the R here on this diagram. And this is done based off a factor of time and a sensitivity parameter that can be freely customized. So if we have a little demonstration here. If we imagine the user's avatar as this block and their perspective, their camera position as a little eyeball on that block, SmoothRide essentially disconnects the two, introduce some dampening as the user changes their level of elevation. All right, so I mentioned this sensitivity parameter. S determines how quickly or slowly your camera is going to follow your avatar. So with a very high S, your vision is going to snap to your body. It's almost like SmoothRide is doing nothing at all. And with a very low S, your vision is going to take a long time to catch up to your avatar within the simulation. An S of 0 would basically mean that the vision never changes, effectively simulating the flat surface approach from the previous condition. Here is all the code for SmoothRide. This is really, really simple to implement. For the sake of time, I'm not going to go through this line by line. Essentially, we are caching a position from the previous frame. We check this in Unity, and then we are linearly interpolating each frame from that previous position to a new resting position relative to the avatar. If you want to take a look at this code for yourself, I went ahead and uploaded just this file to a very bare bones repository over at github.com/angsamuel/smoothrideraw. It's raw because you just get the file and no kind of examples to go along with it. I'm currently in the process of putting this together with a bunch of other cybersickness reduction strategies for all of the new Unity tools and stuff. But for now, just the file is up there for people at the conference that want to check it out. We have a video demonstration of each of these approaches in motion, which I think I need to back out of the presentation to show you. Can I? There we go. Previously, this was crashing PowerPoint when I tried to run it. So it's brought to you by Firefox. So here we have the control condition. We can see that the user is kind of bumping up and down with the terrain here. Here we have SmoothRide, where we are moving up and down with the terrain again, but it's more kind of remedied, it's smoother. We're not kind of bouncing along with the sharp vertices as we go. We have the flat surface approach, where that invisible surface is embedded in the terrain. Our level of elevation doesn't change at all as we move. And then finally, we have FOV reduction, which is essentially the control condition with a FOV reduction filter slapped on top. Let's head back to our presentation here. All right, so SmoothRide comes with a number of advantages. So for one, it's very simple to implement. We have our implementation in Unity here, but you could conceivably do this pretty easily with any other game engine you want to work in. It's applicable to a wide variety of environments. So if your environment has any sort of terrain like this that changes the user's level of elevation and a steering metaphor where you're holding a joystick down, SmoothRide fits right into that. This technique keeps the user's vision completely clear, so there's no need to obstruct their vision or hide a part of the screen, making it more difficult to read or see their surroundings. It's also very easy to configure on a per user basis using a single value, that sensitivity parameter. This technique operates exclusively on the user's avatar, making it easy to incorporate to existing projects as well. You don't necessarily need to go through and change tons of assets across your project or introduce all these new design considerations. So long as you can modify the user's avatar, that should be good. That should take care of the entire project. This also, kind of as an unintended side effect, eliminates a lot of the micro-stuttering that can occur when you cross small debris. So things like pebbles or things like little sharp bumps in the mesh you're walking over. Funnily enough, if you equip SmoothRide and cross over a staircase, you get a very, very similar experience to the ramp approach used by Dorado and Figueroa. All right, so we collected a lot of data for this study. For cybersickness, we used the fast motion sickness scale. This was reduced to a scale of 0 to 10 to meet another metric that we used previously. This is just a single scale rating from 0 to 10 of sickness verbally. Every 30 seconds, participants are in VR. Additionally, we used the tried and true simulator sickness questionnaire, which was taken after every single trial. This gives you a more granular look at how participants are feeling across different symptoms. We also used galvanic skin response, so skin conductivity due to sweat gland activity as an objective metric for this. We also attempted to gather heart rate data, but due to an apparatus failure, we didn't end up with any for the study. But if you're wondering why we didn't have heart data, it's because of apparatus failure, we wanted to do that. We also looked at presence, so we wanted to see how these techniques affected the user experience, their level of immersion, their willingness to buy into the environment. For this, we had two metrics. We first had the iGroup presence questionnaire, kind of a SSQ-like questionnaire, which was taken after every single trial, giving us a granular look at the different types of presence and believability in the environment. We also used the single item presence scale. This is kind of like an FMS for presence. Every 30 seconds, participants rated their level of presence from 0 to 10 while in VR along with their FMS score. Here's an overview of what participants did in VR. So this began with a task explanation where we explained, hey, you're gonna walk around this loop, you're gonna be in this forest. This was followed by a background questionnaire and a baseline SSQ. These baseline SSQ scores were subtracted from every subsequent SSQ in the trial. This was followed by a VR trial with one of the 4 conditions. This was all done in counterbalanced order, followed by a follow-up SSQ and iGroup presence questionnaire and a 5+ minute break. The break was 5+ minutes because we extended the break by a minute every time the participant rated anything than non-zero score of sickness on the fast motion sickness scale. For the study, we had 61 participants with a male gender skew. The mean age was 31 years old. 4 of these participants had to drop out during the first trial due to overwhelming feelings of sickness, so their data was not included in the final study. 3 additional participants reported FMS scores greater than 3 standard deviations beyond the mean, so they were excluded as outliers. This left us with data from 54 participants, 20 women and 34 men. Results from the FMS indicated that both the field of view reduction and SmoothRide were capable of significantly reducing cybersickness. To kind of condense this complexity down for the presentation, you can see this as a absolute percentage change in cybersickness of about 5% for each approach. These results were statistically significant, but we couldn't confirm that for the flat surface approach. We also looked at FMS over time. So here we have graphed the average scores at each timestamp every 30 seconds. We computed 3 delta vectors by subtracting the control scores at each time step from the scores for each condition. And then we applied a Mann-Kendall test to determine if there was any sort of significant difference in how fast cybersickness was accelerating or changing over time. We didn't have any significant results here, however. Results from the SSQ were remarkably similar across conditions. These were borderline identical across conditions here. We're not really sure why this happened. One reason might be that the time in VR is relatively short, just 5 minutes. Another reason is it could have been ordering effect. All of these trials took place on the same day, one after another, and in our statistical analysis, we determined a significant ordering effect on SSQ scores in particular, with a medium effect size. So that's absolutely adding some noise into our data. GSR was also not significant here. Scores were largely identical across conditions. And looking at the iGroup presence questionnaire, we found that the flat surface approach significantly reduced presence compared to the other approaches. Again, condensing this complexity down, it weighed out to be about an 8% decrease, absolute percentage, in general presence versus the control condition, and a 5% decrease in realism versus the control condition. Many of the participants throughout the study kind of commented that the flat surface approach felt a little uncanny. It felt as though you were kind of gliding or flying over the terrain rather than walking through it, so this may have been the reason for that. All right, results from the SIP were also remarkably stable over time. These also indicated the flat surface approach significantly lowered presence reports compared to the control condition, and that absolute percentage again worked out to about 7%, so same as the IPQ here. All right, so this study has a number of limitations. For one, there was a short exposure time of 5 minutes per condition. Trials were taken consecutively, which could have introduced order effects. We had a skewed gender balance. Different configurations for all of these approaches could yield different results. And it's also a little unclear how SmoothRide would work with a virtual avatar. In future work, we'd like to couple SmoothRide with a virtual avatar to see how an embodied avatar would work with this approach. We also want to allow users to customize their experience to settle on a good default smoothness value for the general use case. We'd also like to apply SmoothRide in settings with larger peaks and valleys, so climbing up actual mountains rather than these little bumps in terrain, and then also examining SmoothRide's performance in longer sessions, greater than 5 minutes. That is it for my presentation. I'm a little over time, so my apologies for that, but thank you very much. And these are the references that have been sprinkled throughout the presentation, and we can open it up to questions now. Nope.
Thanks, Bernard Rieke from Simon Fraser University up in Vancouver. Great work. It looks like the sickness overall was relatively low. If I saw like the FMS score was below 3, so basically that's 15%. So could that be a problem basically in terms of the lack of effects? We had exactly the same problem in another study. Mm.
So we wanted to strike a balance where we could get all this done in a reasonable amount of time, but still have like a variety of conditions to go through. So yeah, the limited amount of time definitely results in lower FMS scores. But SSQ scores, these are also quite low, although part of that is due to the initial SSQ, so we're subtracting initial ratings from these.
Yeah, and how did you adjust the sensitivity parameter? Did you do pilot studies, or that was not individual, right? That was in general. Thanks.
Hi, great talk. I'm from Vanderbilt University. I had a question about the GSR. So for every person, from what I have read, that the baseline might be different. So did you do an analysis of how much spike there was from baseline?
We did. Our GSR analysis was pretty simple.
Okay.
Basically, we just took average scores over time, and we condensed that down and used a Wilcoxon sign rate test to determine the
What sensor were you using for this?
We were using, forget the exact name. I think it's the E4.
Oh, E4. Okay, perfect. All right, thank you.
I might need to double check that, but I'm not sure.
Any other questions?
All right, cool. Thank you very much. We'll go ahead and move over for the next presenter. If I can. There we go.
Cool. Next we have a paper talk titled Intelligent Pre-Reset for Redirected Walking Through Reinforcement Learning, presented by Hubin Kong. He's a master's student in the College of Computer Science and Technology and Engineering at Zhang University of Technology. His research interests include augmented reality and virtual reality. I guess his video will be played now. Oh, my bad. It's by Tianyang.
For redirected walking through reinforcement learning. My presentation has 4 parts: introduction, method, experiments, and conclusion. First, I will introduce the background and the motivation of our research. Redirected walking is a virtual reality technique that carefully designs the environment to give users the sensation of working in an infinite space within a limited physical area. The current mainstream IW methods are divided into two types: subtelligent working and reset. Subtelligent working allows users to explore large-scale virtual elements in a limited physical environment imperceptibly. Resets are intended for parsing users' roaming and retracing from contents with physical boundaries to open areas. Reset objects can be divided into immediate reset objects and pre-reset objects based on the timing of the reset. So far, most research has focused on immediate reset objects, but these objects may operate when collisions occur and may lead to multiple collisions in complex fixed elements. At the same time, if the user is too close to obstacles, which can affect the user's experience. Pre-reset objects reset the user a few steps before a collision with a boundary or obstacles occurs, determining whether to perform an advanced reset and steering the user to the most appropriate direction based on the physical environment. The Q represents the path of the user's movement, which color intensity fading over time. Blue line representing working routes with immediate reset, while red line indicates working routes after using preset. To address these challenges, we propose the IPR, a novel intelligent preset engine. It utilizes a model trained with deep reinforcement learning in single-user environments with various physical space. We predict whether advanced reset is necessary based on the model. If advanced reset is required or a collision has occurred, the user will be degraded according to the model's prediction. Now let me move on to our method. The overall structure of IPR consists of three models. The observation models collected real-time data on the physical environment, layout, and user working paths. The networks models takes a series of data as input and predicts corresponding actions using neural networks. The action model executes the predicted actions based on the neural network's output and anticipates the observed data. We partition the feasible working areas in physical space into three regions, as depicted in figure. Immediate reset region is users in the region stop roaming and turn towards the direction placed by the reinforcement learning model. Reset buffer region is users in this region decide whether to reset based on the model. If so, they stop and turn towards the model's prediction, or while they continue working. Normal working region is users roam freely in areas outside the above regions using a subtle reduced working regions. The physical space is a 40 times 40 grid with optical marks as -1 and the user's position as 1. Grid around the user are assigned values between 0 and 1, decreasing with distance from the user. The user's state at time t is a vector combining the previous 5 observations to predict the future path. The action space includes two routes. A indicates whether a reset is needed, where 0 means no reset and 1 means a reset is required. And B represents a new decreasing process reset, divided into 72 increments, 0 to 72 each 5 degrees. So the action set is defined as action in A and B. To help each adjunct learn to make optimal reset decisions, appropriate reward functions are necessary as feedback. First, the reset direction chosen by the adjunct must be reasonable. If it should not lead to an immediate collision with an obstacle or exceed boundaries. Second, to encourage the user agent to walk the longest distance between two resets, we assign a reward will equal to the step size for each step taken by user agents. Finally, we divide the space into 40 times 40 grids, calculate the weakness rate for each grid, and assign reward will based on the current location of the user agent to guide them towards less crowded areas. The network structure consists of three main components: a 3D CN layer, an LSTM layer, and 40 connected FC layers. First, the 3D CN layer includes three 3D convolutional layers and three max polling layers to extract spatial information. ultimately producing 34 feature maps of size 5 type 5. These feature maps are retrieved into 5 one-dimensional vectors and fed into an LCN layer with 512 units to handle time cell state. Finally, two FC layers are connected to the LTN. The first layer uses IEEE expansion function to infer information, while the second layer supports where QI for each state action pair using a linear activation function. Now we move to the experiments part. We configure the live user and the simulation experiments to fully evaluate the performance of IPR. In simulation experiment 1, the physical element group is illustrated in the ABC. Among three layouts, A and C don't need presets at all. However, in B, presets can be used based on the user working direction to avoid narrow errors in the upper left and upper right corners. We use environment group A to show that all orange can reject users effectively during reset in simple environments, improving optical avoidance with low complex. The results are shown here. Through data analysis, APR has better performance in NDBR compared to APFR, RG, and SFRG in 3 simple environments. It demonstrates that overall origin in simple physical environments where preset reset is rarely or not needed can guide users to the most appropriate direction. Now, H1 is certified. In simulation experiment 2, the physical environment group B is included in the FIGO DEF. In environment group B, users are prone to entering narrow errors leading to multiple occurrences. We utilize environment group B to demonstrate that the overall can effectively improve optical avoidance by preset and redirect them to the most suitable direction when necessary in complex physical environments. The results are shown here. Through data analysis, IPR has better performance in NDBR compared to APFR, RG, and SFRG in 3 complex environments. It demonstrates that the overall origin can determine whether preset is needed based on the current environment layout, working direction, and current position, and redirect the user to the most appropriate direction accordingly. H2 is certified. In user experiments, we will verify the applicable of IPR in the actual environment. We set the physical space to 5 meter times 5 meter. 1.5 meter times 2 meters of particles was placed in the middle of the top corner of the space. We record 24 participants. Each user performed 1 channel for each origin of IPR, RG, and APFR in single user experiments. At the beginning of the experiment, we set the user's starting point to the least context error, and the intended direction was provided by reset origins. The virtual space represented a large city at midnight as shown in Figure B, and users were instructed to free roam in the city. NPC randomly appears in the city to guide users to specific locations, after which new NPC would appear at least 4 meters away from the current location. As a result, we obtained 24 pairs of data. Each pair of data includes the NDBR and SSQ score corresponding to the repetitive reset method. The results are shown here. Through data analysis, IPR has better performance in NDBR compared to APFR origin in the actual environment. Besides, we found that SSQ scores were consistent with later results related to simulator sickness. APR origin has no sufficient effect on sickness. Finally, I will conclude my presentation with a summary and some future work. In summary, we propose a novel intelligent pre-reset IPR arranges that utilize a model trained with deep reinforcement learning in single-user environments. We imply deep reinforcement learning DRL with the PPO arranger to intelligently update a model consisting of a 3D CN layer, an STR layer, and fully connected FS layers through 18 experiments. Yet it proves that the performance of our method is more excellent compared with the outside reset origins and applicable to different IDW origins. In the future, we plan to extend our method to enable collaborative roaming of multiple users in the same place. That's all for my presentation. Thank you for listening.
Any questions for the author?
Listening. Any
Okay, I have a question. You said that in future work that you plan to work on having multiple users collaborate at the same time. How do you think you guys would go about doing that with your IPR algorithm? Sort of high-level question. Can he be muted? Unmuted, sorry. He is
we
unmuted.
further create a new network to train
Sorry, what was that?
or neural network. Second, we
Oh,
will
I guess I'll
apply
direct my question to him over Discord then. If we can't hear authors.
Can you hear? Wait. 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 Hello.
Oh, okay, we're not able to hear him here in the room.
Hello. Wait. Hello. Hello. Can you hear?
Oh. No worries, we can direct our questions via Discord because of these technical difficulties. Any other questions? No? Okay. And let's just thank our author once again and then let's move on. We can't hear you. We'll direct your questions to you via Discord or email. Sorry. Let's move on to our next speaker. The next paper is titled Filtering on the Go, Effects of Filters on Gaze Pointing Accuracy During Physical Locomotion in Extended Reality. Pavel is a PhD student at Aarhus University. His research focus is on safe and efficient interaction with 3D user interfaces of XR glasses in the context of physical movement. I think his video will be played now, and Pavel will be there to answer questions after.
Hello everyone, my name is Pavel Manakhov, and I'm going to present the work entitled Filtering on the Go, where we studied effect of online filters on gaze pointing accuracy during physical movement in extended reality. This work was done in collaboration with Ludwig Sidenmark, Ken Pfeuffer, and Hans Gellersen. People naturally look at the objects they are about to acquire or select. This observation lays in the foundation of multiple selection and manipulation techniques that employ the user's line of sight for pointing. Some of those techniques, for instance gaze and pinch proposed by Ken Pfeuffer, have become increasingly integrated into commercial products such as Apple Vision Pro. Recently announced Meta Orion augmented reality glasses employ the same interaction technique coupled with an EMG wristband that allows to perform gestures without raising hands. These glasses are a precursor for a new generation of future consumer products that are designed for everyday use. Some of those uses will include interaction during walking or jogging. We can easily imagine a runner switching among several training metrics using gaze without stopping in their tracks, or a user of a music streaming service interacting with its app while walking towards the office. As designers of such applications, we want these interactions to be effective and thus accurate. However, eye trackers are inherently noisy due to physiological, environmental, and sensing factors. When talking about quality of gaze signal, it is customary to distinguish between spatial trueness and precision. Trueness is commonly defined as an offset between where the user is looking and the target. It represents a systematic error, which is minimized via eye tracking calibration. Precision, on the other hand, is defined as an agreement among measured values, or in other words, how close they are to each other. It represents a random measurement error, which is approached via application of gaze filters. However, we require an aggregate measure that will allow us to compare the effect of gaze filters on pointing accuracy. In this work, we use the measure of target size proposed by Anna-Maria Veit and her colleagues that represents the size of the target that can be reliably selected given a signal with known trueness and precision. Here you can see how a simple moving average filter smoothes out the jittery raw signal. The smoother the signal, the higher the precision, and thus the lower the target size. While application of online filters has been extensively studied in both desktop and XR contexts, guidance on gaze filtering during physical movement is lacking. To fill this knowledge gap, we conducted a computational experiment using data from our previous study, where we asked participants to walk along a linear track and acquire virtual targets with the eyes. The targets were located in 4 different reference frames: head and world, where the targets are fixed relative to the head and surrounding environment respectively; head delay, where the targets are also fixed relative to the head but follow its movement with a delay to simulate inertia effect; and the path reference frame, where the targets are located in front of the user at a fixed height and follow the user's predicted path, which allows them to stay in the middle of the track, effectively ignoring vertical and horizontal oscillations of the head. The target would initially appear in the center of the participant's field of view and then jump to the periphery. We varied the direction and how far the target would move. 24 participants were asked to perform this task while standing, walking, and jogging. In this work, we compared the 4 commonly used gaze filters, which you can see on this slide. We also proposed the low-pass filter with a modified saccade detection. Please see the full paper to learn how they were implemented. While application of online filters increases pointing accuracy, it also introduces a delay. Having such a delay is undesirable because during interaction with user interfaces, our eyes alternate between periods of relative stability, fixations, and rapid saccadic movements to perceive information or acquire UI controls. If measured signal lags behind the true gaze direction, the user can accidentally select the wrong UI control. In order to assess the delay introduced by the filters, we employed the following procedure. For each trial in our data, we extracted a gaze signal that belongs to a fixation, which then was duplicated by rotating it a fixed number of degrees. We then filled in the gap by simulating a gaze shift using a Gaussian function, applied a filter in the online manner, that is, using only past gaze points, and finally calculated delay as the number of frames it takes the filtered signal to reach the halfway point between the 2 fixations compared to the raw signal. The filters we compared are parameterized. To find suitable parameters, we performed an optimization procedure based on grid search separately for 3 movement conditions, that is, standing, walking, and jogging, and 4 spatial reference frames. What's important to note is that different combinations of parameters lead to various results in terms of accuracy and introduced delay. Thus, there is no single optimal solution. Instead, we get multiple optimal solutions that form a frontier. Performance of each filter is characterized by how quickly the target size decreases in respect to the delay introduced. I again invite you to check out the paper that contains a thorough comparison of the filter's performance. Here, due to time constraints, I will focus on the 3 key findings. Firstly, from prior literature, we know that during locomotion, gaze fixations are supported by the compensatory eye movements listed on this slide. Vestibulo-ocular reflex, for instance, rotates the eyes in the direction opposite to the head rotation. This happens constantly on the go due to body kinematics. In our previous work, we showed that when the target is, for instance, well referenced, these compensatory eye movements help to stabilize gaze on the target, which is reflected in the results for precision. As opposed to that, when the target is rigidly affixed to the head, the same compensatory mechanisms work against the user by swinging their gaze around the target, thus worsening the precision. In this table, you can see how much target sizes decreased after filtering compared to the raw target sizes. If we look closely, we will see that HAD in both on-the-go conditions favors heavy filtering, which is reflected in the filter's parameters, which are not shown here. This happens because suppressing the compensatory eye movements in this reference frame minimizes the adverse effect and thus leads to high performance gains, as opposed to, for instance, World, where filtering out the compensatory movements only worsens point inaccuracy. This demonstrates that approach to filtering should take into account the spatial reference frame in which the UI is located. A second key finding is concerned with saccade detection. Similar to the results of prior research focused on stationary context, we observed that on the go, filters that distinguish between saccades and fixations perform better. In addition to this, we found that saccade detection algorithms that are capable of handling increased noise levels due to locomotion demonstrate higher performance. The examples are the window-based and arrow and back saccade detection. This shows that noise sensitivity of saccade detection is crucial on the go. Last but not least, we found that filtering eye tracking data in any reference frame other than the one where the target is located diminishes filter's effectiveness regardless of the movement pace. For instance, you can see that during walking, filtering gaze data for HAD reference targets in the world reference frame leads to virtually non-existent performance gain compared to 36% increase when it's filtered in the HAD reference frame. The same is true for the other combinations of reference frame which are not shown here. This happens because filtering gaze data in inappropriate reference frame causes the gaze rate to fall out of sync with the target. Thus, our recommendation is that filtering should be conducted in the 3D UI's reference frame. That's it from me. I encourage you to read our paper that contains more detailed guidance on gaze filtering during physical locomotion. Thank you.
Any questions for Pavel? No? We can't hear Pavel anyways, so I guess questions will have to be directed to him via Discord again. I'm sorry, Pavel. Really interesting work, though. Just a question that you could probably answer on Discord when I put it to you. The jogging and the standing and the straight walking was considered. Did these involve lateral movements as well, or were they mostly on the frontal depth axis? And I guess I'll channel that question to you over Discord as well. Thanks. Okay, I see. Do you think that there could be a difference with lateral movements? This is kind of weird. I'm talking and he's typing, so. But that's the best we can do with these technical difficulties. Maybe in the future we'll just all be wearing VR headsets and then be in a conference. I see. Okay. Well, again, let's just thank Pavel again. Okay, so I guess that's the end of our session. Do we have other talks here? No, that was the last talk. Well, this session is officially closed early because of our technical difficulties. Enjoy the break.